Picture this, it's 1992. You're a farmer in China, and you decide you're going to drain a local pond to expand your land. So you rent a pump, you turn it on, and you wait. But after 17 straight days of pumping, the water level has barely even dropped. Why? Well, because as the water finally starts to clear, you realize this isn't a pond at all. You have literally just uncovered 36 massive man-made caves carved deep into solid rock. We're talking pillars, bridges, pools, the whole shebang. And here is the truly mind-blowing detail. There is absolutely zero historical record of them ever existing. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into this completely fascinating paradox of ancient history.
So think about that question for a second, because it's the central mystery we're unraveling today. All across the globe, on totally different continents, we have these structures from deep antiquity that act exactly like highly tuned machines. And the thing is, we can measure exactly how they work today. We can test their acoustics, their solar alignments, their precise geometry. But we have absolutely no idea why they were built. It's not a question of how they had the technology. It's a question of what their original intent was.
Now, I want to be super clear right out of the gate here. We are strictly looking at grounded, documented physical facts today. We aren't going down any alien conspiracy rabbit holes or entertaining wild internet rumors. No way. We're focusing purely on the measurable reality of these physical spaces contrasted with the absolute deafening silence of the historical record. Because honestly, the truth we can actually measure is far stranger than any fiction.
All right, let's jump straight into part 1, traceless engineering and vanished builders.
To really wrap our heads around these massive landscape-altering projects, let's go back to those caves the Chinese farmer found, the Longyou caves. 30,000 square meters. To put that into perspective, that is the size of several massive shopping malls completely underground. The ceilings reach up to 30 meters high, which is roughly a 10-story building. And across every single surface, the walls, the ceilings, the floors, there are these perfectly uniform parallel tool marks carved exactly every 60 centimeters. Human hands just casually using chisels simply do not leave a mechanically uniform pattern like that.
But what's really wild is the chilling sterility of the site. Think about a massive construction project today. You'd expect trash, right? Broken pottery, discarded tools, ash from cooking fires, maybe even the remains of workers who had accidents on the job. But at Longyou, total silence, nothing. Geologists calculate that hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of rock were carved out, yet there aren't any rock dumps anywhere near the site. Millions of tons of stone just vanished, leaving behind this massive void, and it's like a whole civilization just closed the door, locked up, and disappeared.
And we see a very similar mystery over in India with the Elephanta caves. These are carved right into solid basalt, which by the way is an incredibly hard volcanic rock. The main hall is a sprawling 39 by 39 meters. Inside there's this breathtaking 6-meter-tall sculpture of the Trimurti Shiva. Yet, zero construction records, no builder names. Actually, there is a medieval text that mentions them, but it refers to them as already ancient even back then. This masterpiece has endured literally everything. I mean, Portuguese soldiers actually used it for musket target practice back in 1534. The carvings survived, but the identities of the people who built it are just completely lost to time.
Moving right along to part 2, and this is where things get really wild. Altered consciousness and ancient acoustics. So these sites aren't just about moving heavy rocks around, they're about moving the human mind. Let me explain. Back in 1902, workers on the island of Malta basically fell through the earth into the Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni. It's this 5,000-year-old subterranean labyrinth. But the truly astounding part wasn't even discovered until 2006. Acoustic researchers were testing a specific chamber down there known as the Oracle Room, and they found that it perfectly resonates at exactly 110 hertz. Why does that matter? Because modern neurobiology tells us that exposure to 110 hertz physically alters the human brain. It actually suppresses the right hemisphere, effectively shutting down our analytical, skeptical center.
Now think about the intent here. That's the absolutely crucial point. You can't just carve out a random cave and cross your fingers hoping it hits exactly 110 hertz. The ceiling height, the exact curvature of the walls, the specific density of the limestone, all of that had to be calculated before they ever struck the rock. Because once you carve stone away, you can't exactly glue it back on. These ancient builders successfully hacked human consciousness. They achieved neurobiological, acoustic precision thousands of years before the scientific method or modern acoustics were even a glimmer in humanity's eye. How on earth did they know?
Which brings us to part 3,
calendars for eternity, and cosmic alignments.
We are talking about structures that were explicitly designed to track the cosmos with a precision built to outlast empires. Take Newgrange over in Ireland. It was built around 3200 BC, that is 500 years before Stonehenge and 600 years before the Egyptian pyramids. From the outside, it just looks like a giant, grassy mound, but it's hiding a deeply precise secret. Right above the entrance, there's this tiny rectangular opening called a roof box. For exactly 17 minutes during the sunrise of the winter solstice, a single sunbeam enters that box, travels perfectly down a 19-meter stone corridor, and lights up the back wall of the main chamber. If the angle of that corridor were off by even a few centimeters, the whole thing wouldn't work. Pulling that off requires generations of patient astronomical observation.
Now contrast that single fleeting 17-minute moment at Newgrange with the absolute grueling marathon that was the construction of Stonehenge. Look at the sheer scale of this timeline. It wasn't built in a day or even a single lifetime. It was a continuous, active construction site spanning 1,500 years. That is roughly 60 generations of human beings, dragging massive stones, some of them weighing tons, dragged over 280 kilometers all the way from Wales, just to continue a project that their great-great-grandparents started. And they did it knowing full well they never lived to see it finished. It is an act of profound trust in the future that we can honestly barely comprehend today.
And there's an amazing discovery that really illustrates the depth of that cultural commitment. Back in 2008, Professor Mike Parker Pearson made a massive breakthrough. Just 2 kilometers away from Stonehenge is Durrington Walls, which is this huge circular monument made entirely of wood. The archaeological evidence showed that Durrington Walls was a place of massive feasts. It was the land of the living, and it aligned perfectly with the winter solstice sunset. Stonehenge, on the other hand, was aligned with the summer solstice sunrise. It was a place of stone, representing permanence, the land of the ancestors. So Stonehenge wasn't just a standalone monument out in a field. It was one half of a massive eternal clock, separating the living from the dead.
Let's hop across the Atlantic over to Ohio, to the Serpent Mound. It's a 411-meter-long earthwork shaped exactly like a snake. But this isn't just ancient land art. The snake's head aligns exactly with the summer solstice sunset. The tail? That points right to the winter solstice sunrise. And the 3 curves of its body perfectly mark the spring and autumn equinoxes. They took 4 absolute crucial astronomical alignments and literally encoded them into the physical geometry of a living creature.
But here is the ultimate mystery of the Serpent Mound. If you go there today and stand on the ground next to it, it honestly just looks like a series of kind of confusing low hills. The perfectly proportioned shape of the serpent is totally invisible from the ground. It was explicitly built for a perspective that simply did not exist 2,300 years ago, a bird's eye view from the sky. I mean, why on earth build a massive, perfectly coded message that you yourself can never actually see?
Okay, let's tie all of this together in part 4, Forgotten Peaks and Lost Ancient Knowledge.
When you zoom out and look at the big picture, all of these sites across the world, it really forces a massive paradigm shift. We have 0 records, flawless alignments, unfading precision. These aren't just primitive people stacking rocks and hoping for the best. These are highly precise, mathematical, astronomical, and neurobiological instruments. And the craziest part? They still function perfectly today, exactly as they were designed to. We kind of have this bias, right? We love to think of human progress as this simple, straight upward line, starting with caveman banging rocks together and ending with us holding smartphones. But these structures suggest something else entirely. History is a cycle of peaks and losses. There were heights of profound scientific understanding, mastery of acoustics, geology, astronomy, that existed in practice way before the actual vocabulary of science was ever invented. And then somehow, for some reason, all of that knowledge was just lost.
I want to bring us full circle back to Ireland for a second. Right now, literally, as you are watching this explainer, that inner chamber of Newgrange is sitting in pitch black darkness. It waits patiently, completely silent, for 348 days out of the year. It's just waiting to catch its 17 minutes of perfect light, doing exactly what it was programmed to do 5,000 years ago by people whose names we'll never know, but whose brilliant precision has outlived them by millennia.
It really makes you wonder what else we've forgotten. So I'll leave you with this. Which of these ancient sites would you most want to stand inside? Would you want to feel that 110 hertz hum altering your brain in Malta? Or would you wait in the dark for the light in Ireland? And if you were standing there, what would you hope to finally understand about the people who built it?
Thanks for watching this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next one.